Welcome to Articulate This, where we explore the minds behind innovation. In this episode, we dive into the world of fundraising and philanthropy with Andrew Clandeni. Discover why trust and belief in the mission are crucial for fundraising success. Explore the fascinating evolution of fundraising over the years. See how technology is revolutionizing fundraising, creating unique donor experiences. Learn about Genwell's project's mission to promote social health and human connection. Understand the importance of data collection and engagement in fundraising strategies. This is Articulate This. Hit subscribe and join us on this exciting journey of exploration and discovery. Let's get into it. Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
Good. Nice to see you, Pat. Thank you for having me here.
What sparked your passion for fundraising and philanthropy?
That's the question of the hour. I think it was the idea and willingness to be of service, a word that you and I have both been talking about from our education paths crossing. It started probably a long time ago, watching and listening and seeing volunteerism, participating, perhaps even a touch of Boy Scouts. But then leading into it, it was definitely participating in student governments and then seeing what it could be to travel and understand what it was to help others. And I think that just was a path, not necessarily a blueprint, but sort of a template that I was looked at. And then eventually got involved in not just a nonprofit, but specific sectors, and then understood, higher education fundraising, social services fundraising, healthcare fundraising, and then really began to dig into it further and further until all of a sudden 20 years passes, career fundraiser, or perhaps depending on who you talk to and how we say it, a philanthropic advisor, or perhaps even a fundraising coach. That's me.
So let's talk about the art of fundraising. You have over 20 years in the field. What do you consider the key elements for successful fundraising in today's landscape?
You know, there's the cookie cutter template answer to that. And I thought that we should start there. But I think there's also the key pieces that we should understand with respect to fundraising. I could talk to you about, the landscape of traditional strategies and key elements like mission and storytelling, having a very diverse revenue stream. So you have individual, you have corporate, you have foundation, community. We can talk about all the data that's collected. Of course, when you give your name, you give your address, we're able to segment that and look at it. There's fundraising strategies that are digital. There's fundraising strategies that are sent to you in mail. There's a very diverse number of strategies. There's stewardship. But I think the idea of what makes fundraising very important, but also the key elements, I think it has to do in this day and age with transparency and credibility. That's the angle I would take, because you as a person that I know, you as a person that I'm asking down the street, you as a person that represents an organization, a company, foundation, I don't know you necessarily, but I have to get to know you, and in turn, you have to get to know me. Priorities of the organization I represent or a fundraiser represents, you understand that I or the fundraiser you're talking to is credible, and the organization has transparency, credibility, and perhaps runs parallel with your belief systems and models. Those are the really important things to consider when talking about fundraising in this day and age. Do you, as a person that has, means, some money, perhaps a lot of money, do you believe in the mission mandate of the organization you're talking to? And do you trust the people that you're working with to invest your money in the organization that you want to support?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about trust. You could have a great charity. You have one rotten apple that could ruin it or create people concerned for investing. But I like what you said about, do you trust the person? Do you believe in the mission? Because that's the most important thing to connect in where you give your funds.
And as a potential donor, there is responsibility for you. You can take a look at, of course, web pages. That's very easy. You can take a look at annual reports. That's very straightforward. You can talk to perhaps your peers in that area. Does someone down the street believe in the same animal shelter that you're interested in? If they had a positive experience giving them money. And so there is a responsibility, and there are vehicles such as Charity Intelligence that you can go and seek out online and view the organization you're interested in supporting. So I gently suggest that credibility of the org is key, and then the homework assignment of the individual that's considering making a donation or making an investment is important as well.
That's really good advice and common sense that I guess some people just overlook sometimes. But through your cross-sector collaboration, you have worked through many sectors. How does this diverse experience shape your approach to fundraising and philanthropy?
My diverse experiences, yes, as you said, across from a number of sectors: healthcare, higher education, and social services, food insecurity, and also furniture insecurity. And I guess it's dare I say, a holistic understanding of the different industries and their needs. So I look at a broad perspective, and I think about innovative opportunities and cross-section collaborations, insights from what I've learned over time. My work specifically now is really to develop tailored strategies and take a look at these strategies to maximize the impact of the investment for the individual. I also attempt to look at partnerships often too. Can an individual or foundation team up with another individual or foundation and play a role in supporting an organization? Or likewise, can the organization that needs support team up with other organizations? And what I mean by that is making the case for support stronger. Let's use the human, rather the dog and cat humane society concept. Are they partnering perhaps with some different veterinary clinics? Are they partnering with some seniors programs where they can potentially bring dogs for pet therapy? These are potentially not the strongest partnership ideas, but that partnership concept and also from the individual or the investor standpoint, I think is very curious to look at, because then you have like-minded people working on a collaboration. And I think those types of collaborations are really good. And ultimately, a multifaceted approach enables more complexity and potentially addresses the challenges that are faced.
Let's talk a little bit about the evolution of fundraising, and how have you seen the landscape evolve over the years, and what are the most significant changes? You kind of talked a little bit at the beginning of kind of with your experiences. Can you elaborate more about the evolution over the years?
I think it's undergone evolution driven by technology, demographics, and values. So first, I think we should always talk about, the digital transformation, the rise in the internet. I think that's interesting. Fundraising can reach markets around the world. So we can think about different areas to support, and you can think about a nonprofit that's based perhaps in Europe or perhaps Asia or perhaps Africa, and you can take a look at what types of programs are taking place there and what resonates with you. I think that online platforms such as crowdfunding is very interesting and has a lot of potential as well. But that digital transformation, of course, can come to you in many different ways. Now, people are potentially getting SMS opportunities to reach out to you. You're also seeing a really big data collection. This is something that's important for your audience and for the people that I speak with. Data collection, as we know, is vital, but it's also potentially it's taking your key information and looking at it and deciding when we can ask you for money, where we should ask you for money, what we should ask you for money. We can compress all of this by collecting information over time and look at giving history. For example, Pat, if you were to make a donation again to that Humane Society in December, that information would be recorded. Not your credit card, let's not go that far, but your information, your address, telephone number, your email, and then of course you gave that gift in December. Potentially we'd want to take a look at you, and maybe we think, Pat's made a gift in December, we can count on that gift every December. But then we'd also do potential tests on you as well. We'd see if there might be a Father's Day campaign that might resonate with some type of digital, puppy dog graphic, to see if we could ask you for a second time. And then if you responded to that, we collect that information too, again, to potentially enhance the idea of how we're asking you for money and support. It's not trying to do something aggressively, but it's looking at analytics so we can continue to fundraise for the organization that we believe in, or at least you believe in and you want to support. There's also, as I mentioned, the collaborative partnerships, which I like and are very important, but there's also impact investing as well. This is, of course, investing in funds that are in projects that initiate and generate potential metrics for you to measure. So if you were to invest in perhaps, let's say, an operation that would be for a water well in an area that does not have clean water, how could you invest in some type of investment that is going to have immediate impact? And you can see the number of people that are served, and potentially how many wells can you operate and open in a year's time. So you want to see huge, significant results with respect to your investment opportunity. So impact investing, what's the outcome and how can you measure KPIs?
How do you perceive the great wealth transfer impacting philanthropy and fundraising? I know this is a topic of interest for you. Are there new strategies emerging to address the shift?
I think, in preparation, again, because I like the way that you prep your guest, Pat. So again, thank you. I was just reading about this wealth transfer again before I came to talk to you. And I've known about this wealth transfer, and perhaps for your audience that's listening, it's addressed both it's probably around the world, but I know certainly just the two marketplaces, the United States and Canada. And of course, we're similar. We're 10 times smaller, or they're 10 times bigger than us. But just for your consideration, the term is the Great Wealth Transfer. So as the silent generation and as the baby boomers, as their lives conclude and they move on, they're transferring wealth, assets that have been generated over a period of time, to Gen Xers and the millennials and so on and so forth. And just yesterday, the CPA, Chartered Professional Accountants, said that between now and 2020 in Canada, there will be $1 trillion that will be passed on. Now, again, this is let's differentiate. We know that we're a country of 40 million people, and we know that we have a very, a high 1% with respect to huge high net worth capacity. But we also know that there are people within that generation that are going to be able to have the opportunity to transfer assets. The greater number that should be considered, and depending where you look in the United States, of course, much bigger, that number is between $6 trillion. And don't get me wrong, I'm not, as a fundraiser, salivating and thinking, oh my goodness, there's money. That's not what this is about. This is about planning and understanding that there is a new generation of individuals that are going to have different priorities, different thought processes with how to spend money, invest money. Perhaps have not even considered their parents' priorities with respect to perhaps Doctors Without Borders or the local hospital, or perhaps their church as opportunities to make donations to support priorities that they think are key. This wealth transfer is going to be significant because the questions are, well, how does the money get transferred? How do you potentially speak to an audience that doesn't have interest or perhaps doesn't have the same, well, I guess that is the key word. It doesn't have the same interest in what the organization is doing. Perhaps there's a different look. Perhaps it is a climate that is top priority. Perhaps it is truly seeing real change with that investment. Perhaps it's spreading it around to many organizations. So it's a matter of knowing the audience and who is Gen Z, who are the millennials, what is going to attract them. Is it going to be innovative fundraising models that are going to help really be appealing to tech savvy donors? Is it going to be innovative models? Is it going to be cryptocurrency, social impact bonds? Is it going to be peer-to-peer fundraising? There's going to be a lot of different things that take place, and I'm only interested in it from an understanding lens. It's going to be curious. Fundraisers aren't supposed to be anything except sincere and credible stewards of organizations. So when we say fundraising, the idea is people that are in my industry are attempting to guide others. And so it's a matter of the same way a lawyer will know their client, the same way that an accountant will know the actual tax laws and implications. We as fundraisers need to understand that something's going to happen that's never happened before, at least of this size and magnitude, help and guide people to make sure that their investments are going exactly where they want with the understanding of what their priorities are and matching with the priorities of the organizations we represent.
So you had some good segues there, because my next set of questions is going to talk about the impact of technology. We talked a little bit earlier about how we're going to be communicating through SMS, email. The digital side, the digital transformation has quickly evolved over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Now, there's emerging technologies like the metaverse that are influencing philanthropy and fundraising, and a whole new generation that are maybe not using. How do you see those impacts?
This is new school. There's no choice about it. I'm watching like everybody else, so we can go very quickly to VR and augmented reality. I think the idea of that Fortnite concert with Travis Scott potentially is something that we could look at quickly. The idea of a digital event, a event in the metaverse where individuals came in as avatars. I'm not suggesting that this is where fundraising is going. I'm just thinking, wow, rock concert online. Let's go and watch the concert. So pause for a second, because for your audience, I don't have the numbers, but let's go look it up afterwards. How many people that are in the Fortnite community attended the Travis Scott concert? Let's just say for our conversation now, a lot. So then this wealth transfer is taking place. We know it's going to be multi-generational. It's going to take time. We know that our young people today are lonely, disconnected, and isolated. They're using online gaming. The question of the hour is, what does it look like? I don't necessarily know, but I'd like to know. There's a global reach with, of course, the metaverse around. Geographical barriers are going to be dropped, allowing philanthropic organizations to have, again, that global reach to an increased audience and expand basically awareness to everybody. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Enhanced engagement too, that AR, VR, what does that look like? I mean, can you imagine that for Pat? I'm there, I'm watching augmented reality. Perhaps I'm interested in health. And let's go back to the Humane Society, because that has, it's a little bit sweet, right? The ideas of cats, dogs, animals that need love and support because they have perhaps been abandoned. So now you get to wear your augmented reality. You get to walk around inside that Humane Society. That's perhaps, the largest one in a country that you have just visited. You see the animals, talk to a person that actually is holding a particular dog that you'd like to either, potentially bring to your home or give money to the shelter to care for that dog's imminent operation. I'm going far because if we think like that for a second and you go, Clandeni, that's silly. Well, we already know full well that people are wearing those headsets, and then we know we can go there. It's just a matter of how are the organizations going to pivot and engage and utilize those technologies.
When you were talking about the concerts and stuff, my mind right away was thinking from an artist perspective, it's actually easier for them to do these fundraising things in the right environment. They could give, like, I'm not sure how the technology works and how it could scale, but how many people could you possibly give a front row experience, based on their donation, right?
Right. Absolutely. What a great piece, giving, and that's something we should pause on too. Pat, you just said something in this line of business, this idea. We know that money is very valuable in the sense that it has the ability to care for us, house us, shelter us, etc. So the idea of an individual that's giving time and money, two currencies that are very, very, that we hold in very high regard. How do you say thank you to somebody? That stewardship piece that we can always come back, create an experience for a potential donor to let them know that A, thank you. B, let us show you the impact. C, let me say thank you again and show you and introduce you to people that have experienced your support. Or let me say thank you in a greater way, depending on the capacity and impact of the gift you've made. So that's curious. I'll add a couple things just to this metaverse, because as you and I know earlier, Pat, I have 10,000 crypto coins that span the idea of different types of communities. What do you think about an actual food bank coin? A crypto coin that you have that potentially is aligned with food insecurity. You have that coin, the community has created a DAO that says every portion of this, or we're going to align with feeding food banks here. I mean, it's very curious to see where this potentially could take us, and aligning people's values and the idea of this new era of cryptocurrencies that are trying to, change the way that we're doing traditional banking, have opportunities as well for nonprofits, for the fundraising society sector rather, that potentially wants to help and do good work. There's some curious things that need to be explored there as well. Overall, I think the metaverse has the potential to revolutionize philanthropy and fundraising by offering new avenues for engagement and collaboration. And of course, one thing we should think about, of course, is accessibility and making sure these technologies are available for everybody. So, I mean, we know that this concept is not available for everybody, but it's simply just another arrow. It's another opportunity, another way to potentially market, talk, sell, share, and ask for support with respect to something that is a priority for many.
When we talk about the promise of the technology, we talk the transparency, I think is key. I think that's what the promise of crypto, blockchain, things of that nature. Outside of that, I really think it's the governance. The governance of it is going to be key for it to be successful. You have to ensure the trust of the individuals to make sure they know that it's going to the right place. They actually see the impacts. I think when we talk digitally and where the new technology, you get to see a lot more where your dollars go to when the new technology is embraced. I think that's the potential that will drive a lot of change in the future.
Agreed, Pat. I think it's interesting times. And so, the lens and reflecting back 5 years from now to take a look and see what this conversation we shared today, what it sounded like now, and then perhaps what it sounds like in the future will be curious to reflect on.
Let's talk about the Genwell Project. Can you tell us a little bit about it and its mission?
Sure. Thank you for asking. It's a project that I've been following now for 7 years. Its CEO and founder, a gentleman by the name of Pete Bambazzi, Toronto, Ontario based, started it by way of, remember many moons ago when the Eastern Seaboard had a big lights out moment? So that was the genesis. He went outside, looked left and right on his city street in Toronto, and saw community come outside and saw the conversation begin as the lights were off moment. And he thought, it's so very interesting that it takes this type of catalyst to change people's behavior, to say hello, to bring food and share, to go on the street and have a sidebar conversation from with a neighbor to another neighbor or a passerby. And so that catalyst is the genesis of the Genwell Project, the Generation Wellness Project. And for the past 7 years, Pete has been working on catalyzing, educating, and empowering people to think about what people can do with respect to their social health. So we know about physical health, we know about mental health. The social health piece is something that we've missed out on, especially now with what's happened the past 3 years with COVID. More people are lonely, more people are disconnected, and more people are isolated. And so the Genwell Project's mission and mandate is to empower people to get on this human connection or I'll call it a human connection movement. The idea to share conversations one at a time with respect to their social health and well-being. And if we can navigate the idea of social health, we can potentially keep at bay the mental health piece. And so we've been talking about physical health for many, many years, as you know, how to exercise, how to diet. And we know that that piece has been ingrained, but it's taken a long time. So the Genwell Project is essentially attempting to create education programming to go out into those different areas and teach about this social health connection and the importance of this wellness movement.
Do you remember what you were doing then at the blackout?
I remember I was at the University of Western Ontario helping them fundraise many years ago, and I know that I was looking left and right. I didn't know if I needed to get a bug out bag or the zombie apocalypse was coming, but I went to some type of scared place, which was very interesting. I raced across the city to collect my loved ones, and then at that time I was living in the countryside, so we just left. We left completely downtown London, oasis close to St. Mary that had a small lake, and the community there were all very peaceful. And that's where we were, had the barbecues, had the swims, had the bonfires, and that collection of conversation did finally take place, and that peace finally came. But I'll tell you what, when it first happened,
I've heard so many great stories like that where neighbors got together because their fridges and freezers were melting. They had to get rid of the food before it went bad. So there was big street barbecues and things of that nature that people just came together, which is pretty cool.
That's exactly it. The idea of that community coming together. Yeah. And I've heard that story. And what a good one too. The freezer must be emptied. Come one, come all. You're all welcome. Very cool.
So why is the focus on social health and human connection so critical in our society today? You kind of mentioned it based off the last few years. What else can you talk about that?
I think as I learn more about it, Pat, and this is new for me, I'm playing a role in helping the Genwell Project connect conversations with individuals that have capacity and interest in helping nonprofits. So as I continue to learn more, I think for me and for the organization's mission, it's the connection of knowing your community, of the connection of knowing your neighbors, the idea of saying hello, and potentially the health and wellness that is actually measured from that. I don't have the complete stacks, but we can take a look at the genwellproject.org after. And we also know that Vivi Murthy, who is the Surgeon General in the USA, has likened the fact that this disconnection and loneliness has implications with respect to our health and well-being, our heart and our soul, if you will. It's been likened to the idea of smoking a deck of cigarettes as well, that the idea of not having these connections is truly bad for our physical. So I've done a couple small tests as I get into this, and meaning I feel better as I walk down the street and as I say hello to people, and as I stop and pet a dog or two. And then in turn, I've measured only in my own KPIs the reaction of that young person has the headphones on, or perhaps the person that owns that dog I pet, and the reaction from them. And then you see a couple smiles. Perhaps there is a common thread. Perhaps there is even a greater conversation that comes from it. But I'll tell you what, walking away is a different feeling and sensation. And perhaps it can be renewed again the next time you pass a person. And I'm talking, of course, on a street level, a community level, where perhaps two of your streets meet. But then even think about the greater good of, holding doors and saying hello, as opposed to being headphone in and blinders on. I think that it's time for us to take a greater look at who we are as a society. And there's some big things happening in this world. And I think that type of weight, it does, it can offer pressure and allow one to sigh. So I think that you could play a more active role in lifting your society and taking into consideration that we all have to play a role in activating the social health and wellness for all of us.
Can you walk us through any key campaigns you have this year for Genwell?
Thank you for asking. There's a number of them. Over the course of this calendar year, the Genwell Project has something almost every month. Last month, we paired up in January with a group from the UK called Red January. And the idea was to navigate people into an active moving around and calling on a neighbor and going for a walk, or getting your mom and dad out to go for a stroll. This month is Face-to-Face February. Started at one of our colleges in town, the idea of playing a role and looking up and not being in your phone. That's a big one. In the spring and the fall, we have two signature weekends called Genwell Weekend Spring, May 3rd to 5th, and then Genwell Weekend Fall, September 20th and 22nd. And the idea is that in your workplace, Friday, on your day off Saturday, and perhaps even your second day off Sunday, if you have that latitude, what can you do for your community? What can you do for yourself? On that Genwell weekend, have a couple people over for a barbecue, or perhaps go for a walk with a neighbor or friend. Perhaps go to the local park and do something. And really the idea in the Genwell weekend is we're looking for people to do these different things and then talk about it and share a photo, a chat. And so we can share it on our social media channels. And weekends are set at two different times when we as a society are a little bit down. Seasons are changing, of course, in spring and fall. Light, of course, is decreasing. So there's a common thread in the health and well-being. So those generation wellness weekends, spring and fall, are very exciting. Loneliness Awareness Week is in June. We have a survey that takes place midsummer. There's a fall campus program for universities called Heads Up. And then we're in our fourth year now of a Canadian Human Connection Conference, and that's going to be in early November. And then last but not least, this is something we did for the first time this past year. Get ready for it. Here it is. That's Talk to a Stranger. That for years and years we've been told don't talk to strangers. But we're really encouraging people to talk to a stranger during the week of November 18th through the 24th. And the idea is, as I said, just say hello. See the change, have a conversation. It's not really that bad. We've been keeping blinders on, as mentioned, in passing through this neighborhood. But, a smile and a hello, and see where it takes you. So, see how you feel after. So Talk to a Stranger, we started last year, and it got some serious national attention. This will be the second time we're doing it. And we're very excited. And really, it's an effort to bring people together, to let people know the society is working, that we want to all move forward. And yeah, maybe not everybody, but why not try it out? Have a conversation with the stranger and see how it makes you feel, and see how it makes them feel.
With significant wealth being transferred to younger generations, do you see opportunities for projects like Genwell to gain more support? And how can initiatives tap into emerging demographics of donors?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think the sky is the limit, Pat. I think that, everyone can have an idea, everyone has a priority, and everyone has a voice. So I think that the Genwell Project is something new. And of course, you and I can talk about the hospitals. We can talk about different social services. We can talk about higher education, those different sectors. But I think that anyone who has a voice and an interest can potentially pitch their ideas and talk about the priorities that they think an organization faces. And then they can use the technologies available to them to serve it. Everything that could be important, you just have to gain audience and traction. But you also have to know what your priority is and what your limitation is, and potentially what are your goals. So you just have to set it up, and you can, make it happen. It could be as simple as, I want to raise money for a person that would like to go to summer camp. So, all right, I'm going to speak to the neighborhood where the person is from. We know the camp is set at this date. We know the range of money that we need to help get this person to camp that we think deserves to go to camp. And then we know that the person hopefully goes to camp, and then we can tell people afterwards, that stewardship piece. So it's this cycle that, in short, anyone can do, and any organization could put in place, a cultivation cycle. Talk to people, tell them why it's important, ask them for support, and then say thank you for the support. And it can go on in perpetuity, just as long as the actual actions are sincere and credible.
Let's pivot a little and have some fun and look into some more personal insights and fun facts about Andrew. So what does a typical day look like for you as a major gift fundraising consultant?
Let's see. I guess my typical day is many telephone calls, many video chats. I aim to be using Teams, Meet, and Zoom often. I am attempting to identify people that have capacity, and of course, matching their interests with organizations that perhaps they're interested in supporting. I'm creating tailored plans for those individuals so they can ensure that the impact that they'd like to have is specific and measurable. And then I'm meeting with donors to conduct, I guess, research with respect to what they want to do to provide them with guidance and support so they can make investments. Likewise, from the foundation side, I'm doing the same thing. I'm taking a look at inside, so I have the conversations with the organization to ensure that I have the stories or priority description that I can share with the donors as well.
I know you kind of mentioned this earlier before. Considering the great wealth transfer, what advice would you give to both potential donors and nonprofits to prepare for this unprecedented shift in wealth distribution?
I think for potential donors, I think plan ahead. What are your goals? What is your financial strategy? I think engaging family is very important. If you have family to consider, I think that having conversations so you're like-minded with respect to the intentions to assure alignment, I think that's very interesting, because of course you can have a greater impact when everyone is aligned. I think, of course, professional guidance should you require. Seek advice from financial planners, from lawyers, accountants. Of course, these are high level. This is when I think about the significant investments that potentially can take place. I think for a donor that's getting into something that's new at a different level, it's considering the different organizations you wish to support, organizing yourself with respect to education to demystify priorities are. So there's no gray area. You know everything. Who is the org? How do they spend their money? What does their annual reporting look like? What do their financials look like? And stay informed. I think for donors, educate yourself. Educate yourself. I think that's key. Likewise, for nonprofits, you must build relationships that are strong. You know that you're having an impact with the stories you're telling, that they resonate. I think nonprofits need to have diverse revenue streams. So, of course, the knocking on the door, the letters that come in the mail, perhaps telephone, if that is important. And then, of course, making sure that all these different levels are working together and coming in at a set time to help the priorities set in the nonprofit. I think CRMs are vital. Utilizing technology for donor management is going to be key, so you can know who, what, when, where, how for your donors and make sure that you're talking to them correctly. And then I think being able to tell a clear story, demonstrate impact. How is the organization making a difference with the investments made from the donors?
I'll just comment on the CRM because I know everyone's concerned about the data that's collected. The whole point of a CRM is to make sure that you give permission for when and how you are contacted and engaged so that you don't alienate, upset, or frustrate a person. They know it becomes more of a sign, so they know when's the best time to communicate with you, the result that you're looking for, instead of alienating them.
That's well said. That's important, Pat, for your followers and listeners. That's the CRM is not to take advantage. The CRM is to record. So if Pat would like a phone call on a set day, we know. It's not necessarily to record Pat's birthday, so we send an email for the birthday, but it is to ensure that we are receipting at a set time. Perhaps Pat makes 3 gifts a year, but he only wants 1 receipt. So it's making sure that we're following the information and requests of donor. Do not mail. Do not phone. Do not send an annual report. Those are the same types of pieces that we keep on the CRM to ensure. And then, of course, Pat gives a call and says, may I please have the receipt from last year from my gift on June 5th? We can, of course, look and see that gift on June 5th and get that receipt out to Toot Sweet. Yeah, very important. Thanks for flagging that.
Now for some of the fun questions. Any favorite book or show you're watching? Book you're reading?
I'm just finishing up Netflix Brother's Son, released in January of this year. It's got a little bit of a Jackie Chan piece mixed in with the Chinese triad. I think that it is worth a while and fun. Should you be so inclined. I pulled this book out. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. I'll read it to you since it's back to front. I just got this given to me by my friend, The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. It's a little bit of physics and poetry mixed in, some wordsmithing about how time moves. So the poetic side speaks to me, but then this physics piece, which I know nothing about, how the idea of the world spins and how if we're at a mountaintop, it is slower, and how if we're down by the shoreline, it's faster, is blowing my mind. So that's my read right now.
Cool. Can you think of the most inspiring person you've ever met?
I put a little bit of thought in it. There's a couple of people. Mom and Dad are definitely very inspiring, period. They're really great folks who I care about and who've guided me. But there's this other individual for your followers to look up. He's a Toronto lad. His name is Neil Prisha. He has a podcast called 3 Books. He's a wellness advocate. And I met him at a coffee house the other day, and it was a chance meeting on the topic of empanadas. And we spoke for 45 minutes about wellness and about who we are, and about trust, and about society at large. And I got to say, as I get in to learn more about him, he's a pretty interesting individual that I'm inspired by right now.
Amazing. As we wrap, what final piece of advice would you give someone aspiring to make a difference in the world of philanthropy?
I think be sincere. I think ensure that you have a willingness to participate. Think about being very credible and trustworthy, and educate yourself so you're able to have conversations about the topics that are important to you, and ensure that you can align them with the people you speak to that have the same priorities. And I guess in short, be sincere and be real. And it's not a sales of anything except time and opportunity to make a difference. So best of luck.
Thank you so much for joining today, Andrew. For people who want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
I'm always happy to connect on LinkedIn. You can find me on my LinkedIn, Andrew Clandeni. You take a look at Project Genwell, or rather genwellproject.org. That's a very exciting program and foundation I'm associated with. And happy to say hello on the street anytime. Please come and smile and share a conversation. Just one at a time. We're going to change the world. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks again for joining, and take care.